So lately, in this community of people on the internet who enjoy discussing political philosophy, I have noticed a shift towards statism. This seems to have taken place because people view the statist philosophy as a more effective way of combating the state and other forms of oppression. One individual who seems to be a fairly large proponent of this idea is a one Spawk. And Spawk made a video to me recently, so I have typed out a response to his points, and I'm going to be reading that here. So while this does respond to Spawk, this should respond to many more points in the abstract, many more of these ideas that are floating around. All of these ideas that seem to prop up this philosophy that the state is somehow more practical. So for you to understand this video, it is important that you know the context. It's probably important that you see his video and maybe my video that he responded to. I do, however, want to respond to the points at hand. I want to respond to the ideas. So this isn't necessarily about Spawk himself, his character, or why he's doing the things he's doing. Spawk starts his video by arguing my claim that what he supports is hypocrisy. And honestly, he did a pretty good job. He says that he never supported equal rights for people, and so to give a disproportionate amount of rights to the state is not inconsistent. That's true. However, this leaves you supporting the unsavory idea of domination for domination's sake. You imply that the instrument of domination could be used to protect some downtrodden minority, but what makes you think this would happen? It's like advocating slavery when the slaves are elected by the majority, on the off chance that it could lead to favorable results for you. Simply put, it makes absolutely no sense. You say that if two different groups believe in different systems of laws and have equal amounts of power, then it becomes difficult to force one set of laws on everyone. Well, yes, but why should this be a bad thing? If a theocratic state and a secular state have equal power, then it becomes difficult for one to dominate the other. Sure, this is the case, but while I agree this is the case, I don't see it as a problem, and I don't see the creation of statism or a state to be an answer to anything, since your side could easily find itself on the receiving end of this domination. And why can't different ideologies coexist? You're always going to have friction where the edges of different cultures meet. Even if you attempt to kill all other cultures, you'll always find differences, variations, people who fall outside your preferred norm. So you just have to embrace diversity to a degree, because not even the state can allow you to escape it. You say that the only way to enforce private property rights is through a state, but I'm wondering what makes you say this. Property works like this. One person makes a claim to something, and if people around him recognize his claim as legitimate, then they will respect it. So, if you live in a society where people value some form of property, then your claim to that form of property will be generally respected. However, if you live among people who don't believe in property, then your claim to property will be very difficult to maintain. The state is not necessary for the formation or maintenance of property. This is based on the ideology of the local population. The only thing the state allows is the opportunity to go against the local opinions on property. For example, if I claim I own all of North America because I made a flag and stuck it in the ground, nobody would naturally respect my claim. But if I use the state, it becomes possible to uphold my claim, because I'm no longer relying on the ideologies of neighbors. I'm relying on brute force. You say we can't have competition in the provision of law. Well, first off, it's important to point out that as long as there is more than one state, there will always be competition in the provision of law. The state just makes political change by means of violence that much more attainable, when instead political change should be spread through argumentation, simply because this selection process tends to breed out stupid ideas, while guns and bombs kill people's ideas indiscriminately. You say you're a fan of nationalism because it can provide a sense of collective identity. But why can't you simply identify with other humans, with which you share some commonality? Nationalism may connect you with some, but this connection you feel is based on a delusion that also serves to segregate you from many of those with whom you would easily identify. That seems to cover most of the ideas in that particular video, but I want to talk about two more ideas that I see a lot. The first being what I have come to call logic voiding statements. This is the act of claiming there is no point to attempting consistency because human beings are primal, emotional machines. This is a way of voiding all discussion on rational human behavior, since rationality is founded on consistency. When you do this, you are bringing any discussion about what we should do to a grinding halt. But the problem is you don't stay consistent with this debilitating premise. You just jump ship and start up a new conversation claiming certain actions to be more rational. The next technique I see many people employing that I see as fairly disingenuous is when you simply appeal to the majority. This is when we're all arguing about what the goal should be, and someone simply falls back on appealing to the current state of affairs. They say, illegal immigrants are not allowed into this country. That's the law. So to talk about these people as if they have equal rights is ridiculous. Or they will say, national borders exist, and unless you live in a fantasy world where they don't, it's best to work with them. But when people say these things, they are simply appealing to the current state of affairs. They're implying that anything else is fantasy and not based in reality. But if this is true, then why would we ever argue to ever change the law at all? If the law is just the way it is, then why would you ever claim the arrogance to challenge it? I mean, they're saying that we're living in a fantasy world where we believe that people's perceptions of norms and laws can be changed. And that's just ridiculous. I think it's obvious that that's ridiculous when I phrase it like that, but this line of logic works because it uses shaming as a tactic. The person who is trying to think outside the box is told that his thinking in terms of future possibilities is a fantasy. It is denigrated as something that is childish, and so the questioner, trapped in a feeling of shame, ends his line of questioning. And I think that sucks. So that's my fairly off-the-cuff response to these collection of ideas that seem to be propping up this new movement of fascism. But I do think the central idea seems to be that the state is a more effective way of combating whatever problems you're discussing, when really free association is much more effective. It is the most effective way because it encompasses all other forms of interaction. It simply allows you to do whatever happens to be the best option instead of forcing you down one narrow path on the off chance that it could help you out. Try to remember what matters. Peace.